Good day, everyone. I am Miss Bianca Rose Peñas and I am your instructor today. Today, let's discuss about the managing and caring for the self or learning to be a better student. So, a good number of our growing years is dedicated to studying in school. Come graduation day, only our studies end but not our learning. Since learning is a constant in life, taking the time to manage the way we learn is a must. This way, we'll know how we learn best and improve the way we plan our personal development. So you see, your brain is capable of incredible things, but I think a lot of times we can feel pretty down on our brains. We beat up on him, say bad things about our brain's abilities. We have trouble understanding a subject in school or solving problems or learning new skills. It is easy to say, "Oh, I'm not smart." What we think of as intelligence, what we think of as smartness is not fixed, is not stuck in one place. It is not permanent. Your brain can improve. Your brain can grow. So, let us know what happens during learning, our brain and behavior changes. So, our brain is primarily composed of about 85 billion neurons, which is more than number of stars you can say you can see with the naked eye in the night sky. A neuron is a cell which acts as a messenger, sending information in the form of nerve impulses, like electrical signals to other neurons. So, for example, when you are writing, some neurons in your brain send the moves, fingers, message to the other neurons, and this message then travels through the nerves like cables all the way your fingers. The electrical signals that are communicated from one neuron to another are therefore what allows you to do everything you do, like writing, think, see, jump, talk, compute, and so on. So next is when you are learning, important changes take place in your brain, including the creation of new connection between your neurons, and this is phenomenon is called neuroplasticity. Neuroplasticity. So the more you practice, the stronger this connection become. As your connections strengthen, the messages are transmitted increasingly faster, making them more efficient. That is how you become better at anything you learn, whether it is playing football, reading, drawing, and etc. So, according to neurologist and educator Judy Willis and others suggested by research rich chapter in the second edition of Developmental Psychology, neuroplasticity is defined as the selective organizing of connection between neurons in our brains. This means that when people repeatedly practice an activity or access a memory, their neural networks, groups of neurons that fire together, creating electromechanical pathways, shape themselves according to the activity of memory. When people stop practicing new things, the brain will eventually eliminate or prune prune the connecting cells that form the pathways, like in a system of a freeways connecting various cities. The more cars going to certain destination, the wider the road that carries them the needs to be. The fewer the fewer cars traveling the way, however, the fewer lanes are needed. So it is understandable naman. So next is neuroscientists have been cursing cells that wire together, since the late 1990s, meaning that if you perform a task or recall some informations that causes different neurons to fire in concert, it strengthens the connections between those cells. Over time, these connections become thick, hardy road maps that link various parts of the brain, and in stimulating one neuron in the sequence is more likely to trigger the next one to fire. Thus, say Willis that practice makes permanent. The more times the network is stimulated, the stronger and more efficient it becomes. Let's proceed. Let us know which or what learning strategies are more compatible with our brain. So, here's the two strategy. So, the first one is repeatedly activating your neurons. This is a practicing and rehearsing repeatedly activates your neurons and makes you learn. So these changes happen as early as when a baby is in their mother's womb and continues throughout a person's life, because the connections between your neurons need to be activated multiple times to become stronger and more efficient. So a first and crucial strategy is to repeatedly activate them. So this means that to learn arithmetic tables, for instance, you have to practice it repeatedly to establish the trail between your neurons. So the second strategy is spacing the activations of neurons. So now you know that the neurons needs to be activated repeatedly for learning to occur. That means retrieving informations. You probably wonder how often you should practice. So therefore, it seems better to retrieve often within spaced practice sessions as opposed to a mass practice. This is practicing a task continuously without rest. So, for instance, instead of studying or doing homework for 3 hours, after which you would probably feel exhausted anyway, you could separate this learning period into 3 to 1 hour periods, or even into 6.5 an hour periods. So, in short, when spacing your retrieval practice, you allow your brain to make the connections that you strengthen during your practice sessions more efficient. So here's some tips on memorizing. So the first one is to assign meaningfulness to things. This is to elaborate on what you're learning and apply the knowledge to something important to you. An example, your proof use or something you saw in a documentary or an everyday experience. So you probably don't remember what you wore last Friday, but you can remember what you wore to prom. New information is most strongly encoded when you relate it to information you already know. And encoding is deepest when you assign meaning to new informations. So the more logic connections you can make to the new information, the stronger the memory. So the second one is to learn general and specific later. So this is method helps with retrieval. If you know a piece of information falls within a broader category, it is easier to access. So next is recite out loud in your own words until you don't need to refer to your notes. This is like, for example, if you have a quiz in classroom or in subject, before this we start the quiz, we review our notes and study. And the way we study is we recite our words loud until we don't need the notes, and by reciting out loud, we can now memorize the notes that we review. The fourth one is teach someone else. By teaching the information to someone else is one of the best ways to learn. Like, if you don't have any willing listener, like a parent or a friend, you can teach the wall or even in your pets like dogs and cats, because best done behind the closed door. The fifth one is use memory devices. Like, there are many different devices you can use to help memorize informations, including the flashcards. Like, it is very simple and easy to do. Like, good for specific facts. Then shuffle cards and recite out loud. Then also put a questions on one side and the other is the answer. So the other method is chunking. Remember, larger numbers is smaller chunk. Other ways that you can help memorizing is a method of Lucy. This is visualize a familiar place and associate objects to it. Also, you can use acrostics, like, for example, my very excellent mother just served us nachos. Last but not the least is practice questions. Whether they are already in your textbook or you have to make them up yourself. Try to do as many as possible, because rather than just reciting informations, questions ask you to apply your knowledge, ensuring you actually understand the information. For example, you need to ask questions to yourself based on the textbook you read and you study, and you can, so that you can see and measure your knowledge, that you are actually understanding the information that you read. So I conclude that your brain is where learning occurs, and you, therefore, need to keep your neurons active to optimize the use of class or study time. The two learning strategies I propose in these discussions have the potential to help you learn better by creating optimal conditions to strengthen and consolidate the connections between your neurons. And you know that you can get better by repeatedly using the trails in your brain and by spacing out your practice. This greater understanding of how your brain learns and the use of supportive learning strategies can now allow you to help your brain learn better. So that's all for today's discussions. I hope you learn and gain knowledge, and do not forget to like, subscribe, and share for more videos. That's all. Bye. Thank you.